Just to prove to you that I'm not being paid for all these positive videos about China, in this video I'm going to share 10 things that I hate about living in China. Now, I know that hate is really a strong word, so I'm going to start from mild annoyances, things that bother me, to my most hated things, so make sure that you stay until the end. And also, I figured that I will bring you to one of the most beautiful places in Hangzhou to film this video. So I am filming this from the botanical gardens, and look at this view. This place is gorgeous. I've just walked in. I paid 10 yuan for the ticket entrance, and I am going to show you around as we discuss the next 10 points. Let's go. Number one, the staring. So as a foreigner here, people are going to stare at you, photograph you, even laugh at you and point at you, which can be quite confronting. And when we first arrived a year ago, I have to say that it was quite difficult to get used to it. We would often find people sneakily trying to take a photo of the kids without asking for permission. And it is quite shocking to us because, you know, where we come from, this is not something that you do. It's a big no-no, but here it is really culturally different. It's not a big deal to take photo of children out on the street. And particularly with us, we all look so different to everybody else, especially when we are together as a family. I sometimes feel like a bit of a walking circus. So we do attract a lot of attention. Now, this is not to say that it's going to happen everywhere that you go. If, for example, you go to a bigger city where you find more foreigners, people are just used to it, so it's not a big deal. But where we live, we do attract a lot of attention. And at the beginning, it used to really upset me, particularly when we went out as a family. Let's say we had some times when we went out for a picnic or just to play sports at a park, and we would literally gather a crowd around us and they would try and film us as a family, you know, trying to just have a nice time. But now, a year on, it doesn't affect me as much. I would say that I've gotten used to just being able to go out and not paying attention to what other people are doing. But then you also have to consider that you are going to have good days and you are going to have bad days. So if I'm having a good day, you know, I won't pay it any attention. I might simply, you know, just say buhao, you know, not to take a photo of us without asking for permission. But if you're having a bad day, it could really get to you. And we do find that there are times when we go out and it does get to us. But the main thing from this to take away from this is that it really just comes from a place of curiosity, just people being curious about us, not because they're trying to be mean to us or, you know, give us negative attention. So that's the main takeaway, that it comes from a place of curiosity, not of hatred. Number two is e-bikes. They're such an amazing invention, particularly because they're really good for the environment. However, they're one of my main pet peeves when it comes to walking around in the streets in China. And not because, you know, they're affordable and quiet, but mainly because of how people use them here. So pedestrians don't have the right of way when you're walking on the sidewalk. So you're going to have e-bikes that come onto the sidewalk and toot at you for you to move out of the way. And honestly, I find it really frustrating. At the beginning, you know, we were getting used to the streets and we would just kind of, you know, be like, oh, okay, let's look everywhere. And if you see it coming, you move out of the way. But now I've kind of taken the approach that the older people in our streets take. And it's basically that I just ignore them. So you might bash me for this, but honestly, if I'm on the sidewalk and you have a perfectly good path that you can ride, use it. Don't come on the footpath or through the park and beep at me. Number three, pushing in. Some people here have a really hard time waiting for the turn and waiting in line. And I'm really not sure why, because the country is so well organized and set out. However, we have experienced this in many, many places. So, for example, on the train, I'm not just referring to your local line. I'm referring to the long distance train where you actually get assigned a ticket. I don't know why it happens, but basically as you're queuing up to get on the train, people are just rushing in and trying to get in right before you. And it makes it really, really stressful. So I'm not sure why they're doing it, because the seats are actually assigned and we're all going to the same place. And I also experience this at the shops. So for example, if I go to buy something and I just wait and line up, that is definitely the wrong thing to do, because literally people will just walk right in front of me. And this has happened everywhere, all the places that we travel through China so far, so it's not just in my city, so just know to expect that. It's a bit of a frustrating process because people are getting in front of us. The other thing that I've noticed is that the busier a place gets, the worse it seemed to get as well. And again, you just notice that people just have this thing that they have to get in no matter what. So I can't explain it. Maybe you can explain it in the comment section below. And I lastly wanted to mention the toilets. So this is something that I saw for the very first time about 10 years ago when I traveled to Thailand. I was in a Thai airport in Phuket, I believe, and a group of Chinese tourists had arrived. And basically I just went to the bathroom, and usually, at least in Australia or even in Argentina, when you go to the toilet, you walk in and you line up. And when a cubicle opens, you go next. However, in this particular instance, this group arrived, I was waiting for my turn, and they literally just walked straight onto the bathrooms. And basically what I've learned is that if you just queue, you're not going to get to have your turn. You just have to go for it. And in the bathrooms, at least, it's better if you just walk straight to the door and you wait for the cubicle to open up for you. So there you have it. Number 4, speakers in public. So this is really quite common here. However, even though it happens in other places, it can become quite a problem because here the population is so condensed. In Australia, you might have a suburb with a few hundred people. Here you have that in a very small area. So if you have people outdoors with their speakers blasting out, honestly, it's just noisy, and I think it's just the way that it is here. I've experienced these in restaurants, on the train, both long distance and short distance. And some people will say that this is just the older generation that does it. However, I would definitely disagree because I've seen lots of different kinds of people do it. And the one place where it can get quite frustrating is, for example, if you're going to a public park or somewhere in nature to enjoy yourself. And again, you're going to find people with the speakers blasting out some karaoke or just listening to music in general. Number 5, registering with the police. So basically, every time that I travel overseas, when I come back, I need to go to the police station within 48 hours, I believe, and present myself with a passport so that I can be registered in their system as having come back to the area. And honestly, I understand why this needs to be done, and China is not the only country that has these requirements for foreigners to report to the local authorities, so I get it. I just wish that it just wasn't so inconvenient and that you could actually do it online. Now here we use an app called Weixin or WeChat, so I'm hoping that in the future this can be set up so that we can just submit our documents when we arrive just on our phones. And to be fair, when I go to the station, I also realize that it's an inconvenience to them too, because it does take a while for them to input all the details into the system, particularly when they notice that I have 5 passports to do each time. And I hope that you're enjoying all the sights around the botanical gardens here in Hangzhou. This is actually my first time here, and this place is simply beautiful. Now in autumn is a great time to come because of all the foliage changes that happened, and obviously in spring. But this place is massive, so I'm certainly going to have to come back to keep exploring. Number 6, being illiterate. So one thing that I really hate about living in China is that I don't actually know the language. Yes, it is very difficult to learn, and I am trying. However, I do think that it's going to take me a while to have that level of Mandarin where I can actually communicate with people effectively. And it can actually affect you in multiple ways. So for example, just walking around the streets, not being able to understand the signs, or for example, most recently I went into a shop to set up a SIM card for my son, and I did not understand what was happening. We were just, communicating via translator. And I've been in situations where, for example, people will be sitting in front of me and they'll start laughing at me, and that can really make you quite uncomfortable. Now, I don't necessarily think that they're saying something about me. I mean, they might, but just being in that situation where you just have to compose yourself and think, it's okay, there's nothing I can do about this, let's just move on. It's something that you have to be here to experience it. And for example, everything that you do here happens online. We do have translation apps that you can use. However, the number of steps that it takes to get there, so for example, what for a local might be a couple of, scan, read, do, for us it's about 10 steps because we have to screenshot and translate everything. Now, the good news is that many apps now do have translation options inside, or you can also download certain apps that give you an English version, so that is really awesome. But it still doesn't stop me from feeling that sometimes I'm missing out on certain aspects of the culture because I just can't understand what's going on around me. Some of the other situations are when you go into a restaurant and they don't have an English menu. I have to say that unless I go into a Western style restaurant, the chances that the menu is going to be in English are next to zero. Now, if you are in a small town, that's definitely guaranteed. However, say if you go to a bigger city in a touristy area, then there's a possibility that there might be a translated menu. There's many situations where the phone rings and I simply just cannot answer it. I can pick it up and say, I'm sorry, I don't speak Chinese. Can you message me instead? But that's as far as it gets. So yes, there are many situations where I'm uncomfortable. Hopefully I'll be able to turn this around in the future, but I think not knowing the language is up there with the things that I don't like about living here. Number 7 is smoking. This one has really surprised me here in China. I always perceive China as being, I guess, conscientious on healthy food, healthy habits, moving about. And I've actually been taken aback to see the amount of smoking that goes on here. And it's fine, you can smoke, do whatever you want. But I guess the thing that I hate about it is that many times it will happen in public places where people are doing it, for example, on train stations, on the platform, smoking right next to people. The worst part is, as you can see, these gentlemen, they smoke and they drop the butts on the floor and they smoke right next to people. So if you're standing there with children, I've seen it in restaurants as well, which is really quite inconvenient. It actually happened at a place that we stayed in Disneyland recently. There was a person smoking inside the restaurant where we went to have breakfast, so that really shocked me. And the one that really confuses me is, why are people smoking in bathrooms? So when we first moved to China, we stayed in the EFC area, which is like a brand new area for the Alibaba company. And when you go into the malls, all the bathrooms reek of cigarette smoke. So I'm hoping that one of you can explain to me below why this is. Is this because people can't take breaks to go smoking, or are they not allowed to smoke just outside the building? I'm really curious, but yeah, it's just a really disgusting habit that you can do whenever you like, just don't do it next to me. Number 8, makeup days for school holidays. Why? Honestly, I haven't actually seen this before coming to China. And basically what happens is that when you have a public holiday, they will add either a day at the front or at the back of it to extend it. And my understanding is that this is so that people can get to their provinces and return with plenty of time to travel. However, what actually happens is that then you actually have to make up for these additional days, and it ends up with you having to either work a Saturday or a Sunday, or in the case of our kids, they have to go to school on the weekend. And whilst it's a really nice thought, the idea of actually sending them to school for 6 days in a row, it's really not cool. So I kind of wish that we didn't have those makeup days, so you either get the extra day for free or you don't. Because it's really not fun having to send the kids to school. We find that then only having a 1-day weekend is not enough for them to recover, for them to then restart their week. Number 9 is VPNs. VPNs is something that you simply just can't live without when you're a foreigner in China. You definitely need this to be able to connect with family back home. All the apps that we know of, you basically just can't access them in China. So from Facebook to WhatsApp to YouTube, or even just your regular browser, you're gonna need a VPN to do all those things. Whilst this is something that you can easily quite remedy by downloading a VPN, you do obviously have to find one that works reliably. And here they're not reliable at all. I do have at least 2 different VPNs downloaded onto my mobile phone. I have a free one and a paid one. So obviously on top of that, you have the cost of a VPN. But the most frustrating thing is that sometimes they just stop working and you need to change a server, and you might think, okay, this is a very small problem. It really is, but it does wear you out. And when we do travel outside of China and we no longer rely on a VPN, I have to tell you, I really do enjoy that. And on the other side, whilst using a VPN, it also takes up time because you have to find a server that works, you have to be able to connect to it, and also it can slow things down. So this is one of our kids' complaints. Usually when they play certain games on their iPads, they find that their connection is quite slow because it's going through a VPN. And lastly, number 10. This one I do actually genuinely hate, so that's why it's last. And it's the one thing that I wish that people just wouldn't do here, because I find it extremely disgusting, and that would be spitting. And I'm not just referring just to spitting, but the hawking noise that comes before the spitting actually takes place. I'm not entirely sure if this is common all throughout China.
You know, I was going to say something that's been great about Shanghai is that we haven't experienced a lot of people hawking the mucus and spitting it all over the ground. And literally right as I started to record, somebody did exactly just that next to me.
I do see it quite a lot in my neighborhood, and to be frank, honestly, I'll be walking through my neighborhood oftentimes just thinking like, don't look down, because I'm so afraid of seeing what's on the floor. And even sometimes in my apartment, when it's a nice day like today, I'll open the windows just to let some fresh air in. And unfortunately, sometimes I'll have to close it, because all I can hear from downstairs are the people just walking through the complex, and that horrible hawking sound, and then the spitting that takes place right afterwards. Sometimes I even see people just blowing their nose like this, and honestly, please stop. So anyways, I hope that you have enjoyed this little compilation of 10 things that I hate about living in China. I would love to know your thoughts below. And honestly, it was actually quite hard to come up with this, because living in China is actually quite good. So there's no lies behind that. So thank you so much for joining me. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet, and I'll see you on the next one.